March 2nd, 1945. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, Reims, France. A radio message arrives from 3rd Army. The communications officer reads it, freezes, then rushes down the corridor. Within minutes, the message reaches General Omar Bradley's desk. Bradley reads it once, reads it again, then starts to laugh. The message contains just 19 words, but those 19 words represent one of the most audacious acts of military defiance in World War II. Have taken Trier with 2 divisions. Do you want me to give it back? General George St. Patton has just captured a city he was explicitly ordered to bypass, a city Supreme Headquarters estimated would require 4 full divisions to take. The city Eisenhower's staff considered too strong, too well defended, too costly to assault. Patton took it with half that force in less than 2 days, and now he's asking if they want him to return it. This is the story of the Battle of Trier. A story about orders ignored and impossible victories achieved. A story that reveals the complicated relationship between military genius and military discipline. A story that asks a question still debated in war colleges today. When is it acceptable for a battlefield commander to disobey a direct order? 2 weeks earlier, late February 1945, the 3rd Army Headquarters received a directive from Bradley's 12th Army Group. The order is clear and specific. As the 3rd Army drives through the Eifel region toward the Rhine, bypass Trier. Do not attack it. The city is too heavily defended. Intelligence estimates suggest it will require 4 divisions for a successful assault. That's 80,000 men. The losses would be catastrophic. Trier sits on the Mosel River in western Germany. It's not just any city, it's Germany's oldest city, founded by the Romans in 16 BC. Ancient walls still stand. The Porta Nigra, a massive Roman gate, dominates the northern entrance. Medieval fortifications built on Roman foundations. Narrow streets perfect for defence, and in March 1945, occupied by battle-hardened German troops determined to hold every inch. The strategic logic behind the bypass order makes perfect sense. 3rd Army's mission is to reach the Rhine River as quickly as possible, then cross it and drive deep into Germany's industrial heartland. Every day spent assaulting a fortress city is a day the Germans use to strengthen their Rhine defences. Better to go around Trier, leave it isolated, and let it surrender later when cut off from supply and reinforcement. This is standard military doctrine. When facing a heavily defended position that's not strategically critical, bypass it. Fix it in place with minimal force and continue the advance. The Allies used this strategy successfully throughout the Pacific War, bypassing Japanese island fortresses. It saves lives. It saves time. It makes tactical sense. But George Patton doesn't think like other generals. He sees the world through a different lens. To Patton, momentum is everything. Speed is everything. The enemy's will to resist must be shattered, not merely avoided. Bypassing Trier means leaving German forces intact behind American lines. It means respecting German defensive strength. And Patton never respects the enemy's defensive strength. He studies the intelligence reports on Trier. 4 divisions are required, heavily fortified, determined defenders. Then he looks at his map. The road to the Rhine runs through or around Trier. Going around means a longer route through difficult terrain. Going through means a direct shot to the river crossing sites. Speed versus caution. Attack versus bypass. On February 28, elements of Patton's 3rd Army reached the outskirts of Trier. Major General Manton Eddy's the 6th Corps driving from the north. Major General Willard Paul's 26th Infantry Division approaching from the south. They've already captured Prüm and Bitburg in rapid succession. The German defenders in those cities collapsed faster than anyone expected. Patton's troops are moving at a pace that's astounding even to his own staff. And then the order arrives again, from Bradley, from Eisenhower's headquarters. Do not attack Trier. Bypass it. Move around to the south. The city is too strong. Patton calls Eddy. The conversation is brief. What do you think? Eddy, who knows his commander well, understands what's really being asked. Can we take it? Eddy looks at the latest intelligence. German forces in Trier are weaker than estimated. The rapid Allied advance has disrupted their defensive preparations. The city is less heavily defended than Supreme Headquarters believes. We can take it, Eddy says, probably with 2 divisions, maybe less. Patton makes his decision instantly. Attack. He doesn't inform Bradley. He doesn't ask for permission. He simply orders the assault. Years later, Patton will write in his diary that he believed asking permission would result in being told no, so he decided to ask for forgiveness instead. Here's what makes Patton's decision remarkable. He's not just ignoring advice. He's not just rejecting a suggestion. He's directly disobeying a clear order from his superior officer. In military terms, this is about as serious as it gets. Officers have been relieved of command for less. Patton knows this. He's been in hot water before, most famously for slapping soldiers suffering from battle fatigue in Sicily. Eisenhower nearly sent him home in disgrace then, but Patton calculates that success will excuse the disobedience. Take Trier quickly with minimal casualties, and the order to bypass it will be forgotten. Fail or suffer heavy losses, and his career is over. It's a calculated gamble, and Patton loves calculated gambles. March 1st, 1945. The assault on Trier begins. The 10th Armoured Division, part of Eddy's the 16th Corps, approaches from the northeast. The 76th Infantry Division swings in from the north. The 94th Infantry Division moves up from the south. Not 4 divisions, just 3 elements. About half the force Supreme Headquarters estimated necessary. The attack unfolds with precision. American artillery pounds German defensive positions. Sherman tanks roll forward, suppressing enemy strong points. Infantry follows, clearing buildings street by street. The Germans fight hard, as expected, but they're spread thin. The rapid American advance over the previous weeks has left them without adequate reinforcements. What Supreme Headquarters didn't know is that many of the troops defending Trier are Volkssturm, the German Home Guard, old men and teenagers, inadequately trained and poorly equipped. Mixed among them are regular Wehrmacht units, professional soldiers who fight fiercely. But there aren't enough of them. The estimated 4-division defense simply doesn't exist. By nightfall on March 1st, American forces controlled the northern approaches to the city. They've penetrated the outer defenses faster than anyone dared hope. Casualties are surprisingly light. The Germans are fighting a delaying action, not a last-stand defense. They're trying to slow the American advance long enough for more troops to escape east across the Moselle. March 2nd, 1945, early morning. American troops push into central Trier. The ancient Roman city becomes a battlefield. Sherman tanks lumber down streets built for horse-drawn carts. Infantry clears the medieval buildings one by one. Panzerfaust teams hide in ruins, firing anti-tank rockets at point-blank range. Machine gun nests defend every intersection. But the American advance is relentless. By mid-morning, the 10th Armoured Division reaches the Moselle River bridges. German engineers blow the spans before American tanks can cross, but it doesn't matter. Trier's defense is collapsing. German troops are surrendering in large groups. Some units fight to the end. Most realize they're cut off and resistance is futile. By noon on March 2nd, organized German resistance in Trier had effectively ended. American forces control the entire western bank of the Moselle. They've taken Germany's oldest city in less than 36 hours of actual combat. Total casualties, minimal compared to the predicted bloodbath. The city falls not because of overwhelming force, but because of speed, surprise, and aggressive tactics. Exactly the kind of victory Patton lives for. And this is when Patton composes his message to Bradley. He knows he's in trouble. He knows he disobeyed orders, but he also knows he's won. So he decides to frame his disobedience as a joke, as a fait accompli wrapped in humour. The message that will become legendary. Have taken Trier with 2 divisions. Do you want me to give it back? Think about the audacity of that message. Patton isn't apologising. He isn't explaining. He's not even acknowledging that he ignored orders. Instead, he's making a joke. He's highlighting his success while subtly mocking the intelligence estimates that said it would take 4 divisions. He's daring Bradley and Eisenhower to criticise him for achieving an impossible victory. At the 12th Army Group headquarters, Bradley reads the message and bursts out laughing. Those present later recall that Bradley shakes his head, still chuckling, and says something like, "That's George." That's exactly George. Bradley immediately calls Eisenhower. He reads the message. There's a pause on the line. Then Eisenhower starts laughing too. Here's why they can't stay angry. Patton just solved a major problem. Trier was a thorn in the Allied advance. It controlled key river crossings. It threatened the southern flank of the drive to the Rhine. Supreme Headquarters wanted it bypassed because they thought taking it would cost too much. But Patton took it quickly and cheaply. The city that would require 4 divisions fell to elements of 2. Eisenhower's response is pragmatic. He doesn't formally reprimand Patton. He doesn't relieve him of command. Instead, he sends a message back. Hang on to it. Well done. In military terms, this is tacit approval. Eisenhower acknowledged that Patton was right to attack. The victory justifies the disobedience. But behind the scenes, Eisenhower is less amused than his response suggests. He privately tells Bradley that Patton's independence is becoming a problem, that battlefield commanders must follow orders even when they disagree. Patton's cowboy attitude endangers the chain of command. Bradley agrees, but points out that Patton gets results. And in March 1945, with the war entering its final phase, results matter more than discipline. This raises a fundamental question about military command. When is a subordinate commander justified in disobeying orders? The military answer is almost never. Orders exist for a reason. The commander on the ground doesn't see the full strategic picture. What seems wrong tactically might be right strategically. Disobedience creates chaos. It undermines authority. It leads to disasters when commanders start making independent decisions without coordination. But war is not an academic exercise. Conditions change faster than orders can be updated. The general at headquarters works from intelligence that might be hours or days old. The commander on the battlefield sees the actual situation. Sometimes the orders don't match reality. Sometimes following orders means missing opportunities or suffering unnecessary casualties. Patton believes battlefield commanders must have the freedom to exploit opportunities. That rigid adherence to orders wastes chances that will never come again. That speed and aggression overcome careful planning. His entire command philosophy centers on what he calls violent execution. Hit the enemy hard, hit them fast, and keep hitting until they break. Don't wait for permission. Don't ask for clarification. Act. This philosophy produces spectacular successes. Patton's Third Army's advance across France in August 1944 is one of the fastest sustained drives in military history. His relief at Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge demonstrates his ability to turn his army 90 degrees and attack in 48 hours. His crossing of the Rhine weeks after Trier shows his talent moving faster than the enemy can react. But this philosophy also produces problems. Patton's troops sometimes outrun their supply lines. His aggressive tactics sometimes result in higher casualties than necessary. His independence sometimes creates coordination nightmares for higher headquarters trying to manage multiple armies, and his disobedience of orders, even when it produces victories, sets a dangerous precedent. The Trier incident perfectly encapsulates this tension. Patton is right. The city could be taken with 2 divisions. The intelligence estimate of 4 divisions is wrong. The order to bypass Trier is based on faulty information. Patton's attack is strategically sound and tactically brilliant. Victory proves him correct, but Patton is also wrong. He has no authority to ignore direct orders. He doesn't know for certain that Trier is weakly defended until after he attacks. He's gambling with soldiers' lives based on his gut feeling that he can win. If the attack fails, if casualties are heavy, if German reinforcements arrive unexpectedly, the entire Third Army's advance could stall. Patton is risking the larger operation for a local objective. The fact that Patton succeeds doesn't change the fundamental problem. Success doesn't retroactively justify disobedience. It just makes it harder to punish. Eisenhower knows this. Bradley knows this. They both know that if every general started ignoring orders whenever they thought they knew better, the Allied command structure would collapse into chaos. So why don't they relieve Patton of command? 2 reasons. First, it's March 1945. The war in Europe will be over in 2 months. They need Patton's drive and aggression for the final push. Second, and more importantly, Patton is right too often. His instincts are too good. His victories are too impressive. He's simply too valuable to lose over a matter of principle. But Eisenhower makes sure Patton knows he's on thin ice. After the Trier message, Eisenhower sends a private communication to Bradley. The message is clear. Patton is to be reminded that orders are not suggestions, that disobedience will not be tolerated again, that the next time might result in relief from command. Bradley delivers this warning to Patton, who nods, salutes, and goes right back to planning his next offensive. In the weeks following Trier, Patton's Third Army continues its rampage across Germany. They cross the Rhine at Oppenheim on March 22nd, again moving faster than anyone expected. They drive through Bavaria into Austria. They're racing toward Czechoslovakia when the war ends. Everywhere they go, they move at a pace that astounds friend and foe alike. And everywhere they go, Patton pushes the boundaries of his orders. He doesn't directly disobey again, but he interprets orders in the most aggressive possible way. He exploits every ambiguity. He moves before confirmation arrives. He asks forgiveness, not permission. It becomes his trademark. His commanders learn to write orders that give him maximum flexibility, knowing he'll push beyond whatever limits they set. The Trier incident becomes legendary. Patton's message is quoted in military academies as an example of aggressive leadership, or as a warning about insubordination, depending on who's teaching the class. Veterans of the Third Army tell the story with pride. See what our general did? He took a city that everyone said was impossible to take. He told Eisenhower to shove his orders, and he got away with it because he was right. But there's another side to the Trier story that's less often told. The soldiers who attacked the city, the men who faced German machine guns and Panzerfausts in Trier's ancient streets. They didn't know the attack was unauthorized. They didn't know Patton had ignored orders. They just knew they were ordered to assault a heavily defended city. And they did it. About 200 American soldiers were killed or wounded taking Trier. Not the thousands that Supreme Headquarters predicted, but not nothing either. 200 families received telegrams. 200 men bled in Trier's streets because Patton decided he knew better than his superiors. The victory was real. The strategic value was real. But so were the casualties. This is the weight of command. Patton's decisions save lives compared to the 4-division assault. But it costs lives compared to bypassing Trier entirely. Was he right? The answer depends on whether you're measuring tactical success, strategic contribution, or human cost. Each metric gives a different answer. What's undeniable is that Trier's capture accelerated the Third Army's drive to the Rhine. It secured a key river crossing. It eliminated a potential threat to the American advance. Within weeks, it becomes clear that taking Trier was the right decision. The city becomes a major supply hub for operations east of the Rhine. Its fall demoralizes German troops throughout the region. The intelligence estimates were wrong. Patton was right. But Patton being right doesn't answer the larger question. What if he'd been wrong? What if German reinforcements had arrived? What if the city's defences were as strong as estimated? What if casualties were high and the attack failed? Then Patton would have been relieved of command, and rightly so. Success excuses disobedience in war, but it doesn't justify it. There's a difference. Eisenhower understands this difference. He's not a battlefield commander like Patton. He's a theatre commander, managing multiple armies across multiple fronts. He needs coordination, not independence. He needs generals who follow orders, not generals who ignore them. But he also needs victories, and Patton delivers victories. So, Eisenhower makes a pragmatic calculation. Keep Patton. Use his talents. Accept his insubordination as the price of his brilliance. But keep him on a short leash. Watch him carefully. Make sure his independence doesn't cascade into chaos. It's not an ideal solution. It's a wartime compromise. After the war, military historians debate the Trier incident endlessly. Some see it as proof that battlefield commanders need freedom to act. That centralized control stifles initiative. Patton's success validates his methods. Others see it as a dangerous example of insubordination that happened to work out. That Patton got lucky. That imitating his approach could lead to disasters. The truth, as usual, is somewhere in between. Patton's instincts at Trier were correct. His assessment of German weakness was accurate. His attack was well planned and well executed. He was right to believe he could take the city with fewer forces than estimated, but he was wrong to ignore orders. Right outcome, wrong process. Modern military doctrine tries to balance these competing needs. Commanders are given mission-type orders. Achieve this objective using your best judgment on methods. This gives battlefield commanders flexibility while maintaining strategic control. But even mission-type orders have limits, and commanders who consistently ignore those limits eventually face consequences. Patton never faced those consequences. He died in a car accident in December 1945, 8 months after Trier. He never had to answer for his pattern of insubordination, because the war ended before Eisenhower lost patience. But it's clear from documents released later that Eisenhower was preparing to relieve Patton, not for Trier specifically, but for the accumulation of incidents. The pattern of independence that produced victories but endangered the larger strategy. So what's the lesson of Trier? That depends on who you ask. Aggressive commanders see validation. Cautious commanders see a warning. Historians see complexity, soldiers see victory, and everyone sees the enduring tension between discipline and initiative, between following orders and winning battles, between being a good subordinate and being a great commander. Patton's message from Trier becomes one of the most quoted lines of World War II. "Have taken Trier with 2 divisions. Do you want me to give it back?" It's delivered as a joke. It's remembered as audacity, but underneath the humour is a serious challenge to the nature of military command. Who knows best? The general at headquarters has complete information but no battlefield presence. Or the commander on the ground with incomplete information but direct observation. There's no perfect answer. War is too complex, too chaotic, too dependent on specific circumstances. Sometimes the headquarters view is correct. Sometimes the battlefield view is correct. The art of high command is knowing which is which. And the art of being Patton is betting on your own judgment so confidently that even when you're wrong, people remember when you were right. Trier stands today as a rebuilt city, its Roman monuments restored, its medieval centre reconstructed after wartime damage. Tourists walk streets where Sherman tanks rumbled in March 1945. They visit the Porta Nigra, that massive Roman gate that American soldiers fought past. They don't know that the city's capture was unauthorized. They don't know that Patton ignored orders to take it. They just know it fell quickly. Casualties were light, and the Third Army kept rolling east. And maybe that's the real lesson. In the end, war measures result. Trier fell. The Rhine was crossed. Germany was defeated. Patton's methods were unorthodox, his obedience questionable, his personality impossible. But his victories were real. His contribution to Allied success was undeniable. He was the right general for his moment in history, even if he was often the wrong subordinate for his chain of command. So when Bradley read Patton's message asking if they wanted Trier given back, he laughed because he knew he couldn't stay angry. When Eisenhower heard about it, he shook his head because he knew he couldn't punish success. And when soldiers of the Third Army heard the story, they grinned because they knew their general was different. He didn't ask permission. He didn't accept limitations. He just attacked, won, and then asked if anyone had a problem with the victory. That was Patton, brilliant and insubordinate, right and wrong. Impossible to work with, and impossible to work without. The general who took the city he was ordered to bypass then asked if they wanted it back, and the answer, grudgingly given, but honestly meant, was no, keep it. Well done, now keep moving. Because in March 1945, with Germany collapsing and the end in sight, the Allies needed Patton's drive more than they needed his obedience. The war would be won by following orders and by breaking them, by careful planning and by reckless audacity, by coordination and by independence. Trier proved that sometimes the unauthorized attack succeeds, but it also proved that success doesn't make disobedience right, it just makes it harder to punish. And that tension between military discipline and battlefield genius is why Patton's message from Trier echoes through military history to this day.